Hello guys, welcome to another episode of this Mercedes Sprinter van conversion. There's been a number of people who have commented and asked for details on how I lined the van, what materials I used and how did I apply it. I did a short time-lapse video of us installing the ply lining in the van, but I didn't think there was enough footage there to warrant doing a dedicated video. So I've been back through the archives, I've dug out all the footage I've got on the lining and I've put together this video for you. So I hope it answers all your questions. This is what we're using for the ply lining for the van. It's a 9mm marine ply. The reason I've gone for this is it's plenty thick enough to hold a decent screw fix in, plus still thin enough to have a little bit of flex in it. Also the marine ply will mean that it's made with a stronger type of glue, less likely to become delaminated, especially if it was to get wet, but I don't plan for it to get wet. When you're selecting a jigsaw blade suitable for cutting wood, there's a couple of things to bear in mind. You'll find that they have different coarseness of teeth, and the coarser the teeth, the quicker the rip cut, but also the rougher the cut finish, so it'll probably give you a lot of tear out. So if you want a finer finish, you want to look for a blade which has got smaller teeth, like this one, and in most cases you'll notice that the teeth are pointing upwards, like this is. The teeth on here are pointing upwards, so this is going to cut in the upwards direction. So you're going to have a clean cut on the underside of your board, and you're going to tend to get a little bit of tear out on the upper side of the board. So if you're cutting on the finished surface, what you want to look for is a blade where the teeth are pointing downwards. So this blade's going to cut on the downstroke. So the top surface is going to be a nice clean finish, and if you're going to get any tear out, it's going to be on the back, which is going to be less noticeable. So as I'm marking up on the finished surface, I'm going to use this particular blade here. I've used the old ply lining that came out of the van. There's a curve at the back, so I've used that to mark up the new ply lining. This is all going to be carpeted afterwards, so it doesn't have to be super accurate, because I can take up any differences with the carpet. We know this side fits really well. Both sides are exactly the same. We did do a test sample just to check. So I'm now going to mark the second board off of this one. I'll put them face to face because we want a mirror image, obviously. I want the good side on the outside. I'm just going to mark it with a pencil and then we'll cut it out with a jigsaw. To mark out the location of these socket boxes on the ply lining, first thing I do is just measure off of a known place like the sidewall, that's where the ply finishes, and then come across and take note of these two dimensions. So 14 inches and 16 3/4, and then transfer those dimensions to my ply sheet. I'll cut a small hole in the middle of the socket first, just to check that I'm in the right location, and then I'll enlarge it from there. So I've marked where the socket should be, I've just drilled a hole dead in the centre of there, and then when we've got the board up on the wall we'll be able to see through to where the socket is, and then I'll be able to make any adjustments that I need to before I enlarge it. We're just cutting the ply lining for the kitchen side of the living area. I'm using a 9mm marine ply just because it'll be a little bit more hard wearing where there's areas where there might be a little bit of moisture in the kitchen. I've marked out the socket locations. At the moment I've just done a centre hole. Once the board's up on the wall we can check and then I can enlarge them to suit. I've also drilled a large hole down the bottom here. There's a big bunch of cables that comes through for the oven and fridge. I'm just going to secure the ply lining to this back wall of the shower cubicle. What I've done before we put the ply on here, underneath the Reflectix I can feel where the main structural members are and I can feel where the hollows are. So I've just gone around with a Sharpie and just marked all these main structural supports, because obviously this is where I want to get fixings into with some self-drilling screws. I've marked the same at low level here, so you can see there's a main structural member there and there's some vertical structural members there. So this is what we're going to fix into. This dotted line indicates where I'm going to cut the board, because from the bottom up to that mark it's predominantly straight. Then the van starts to curve in, and then there's another break at this structural member and it curves in even more. So rather than force the wood into shape, I'm going to cut them at these lines. I can still get a fixing top and bottom here into some decent steel work to fix the bottom half and the top half of these two boards, and it will just give me a nice break in the wood so it's not under too much stress. Because this is the shower, ordinarily I wouldn't do this under the other ply lining that we've done in the rest of the van, but I'm actually going to run some of this Sikaflex 221 down the corner here. This is a really strong adhesive and sealant, so if any water does get behind there I'm going to have a nice bead of mastic behind there, so hopefully that'll stop it going any further. What I did do with the ply lining is I ran it up to this centre division. This partition divides the bedroom from the living half of the van, so the ply lining was almost a full sheet, stops there. We built the partition and the partition actually goes right in to basically touch the Reflectix, so it's supported by this side of the ply lining. And then when we ply lined the kitchen and the shower on the other side of the partition, I put the ply lining up to this side of the partition. So all the way down from top to bottom, this partition is really well supported on both sides by the ply lining, which is screwed to the van. And it also makes a really neat joint there. I can now put splashback here on the kitchen. That'll cover any seams there. I don't need any additional brackets or fixings. We're actually going to be putting an acoustic felt in the bedroom area, and again that'll run right up to this partition and give us a nice clean finish. The ply lining runs right up to the door pillar. Obviously we wrapped the door pillars with Reflectix and this stretchy auto carpet. The lining comes right up to there. The splashback that we're proposing to use will wrap around that, and that will finish into the carpet as well, so you won't be able to see any of that, but it's given us quite a nice neat finishing edge. Counter service for the kitchen will come through here. This will be cut around here as well and continue on past the doorway. When we get to this side on the van, obviously we've finished this board right by the window here. The next furniture board, which forms the other side of the shower, will come into this carpet. Probably will just put a bit of iron-on trim on the back of that board, so if anybody did sort of just put their hand around there or whatever, you know, that wouldn't be a raw edge of plywood, that would be a finished edge down the back there. But it actually finishes in quite a nice position. We thought the shower originally was going to sail past the window a little bit, but once we've now got it all laid out in here, it finishes really well. You know, we're going to have curtains here, so that portion of the van's probably going to be concealed by the curtains. And then lastly, at the bottom here where the bench seating is going, I'm going to also put another piece of 9mm ply here. It will come up to just below this window reveal, and then I'm going to carpet the whole of that piece, because obviously if you pull the cushions away from the bench seating, you don't want to see a raw bit of plywood, so that panel will actually be pre-carpeted and then it will be fixed into the van. And then at high level here, we're obviously going to have a cupboard running from the bulkhead right the way through to the shower wall. And then I will ply line this section as well with a bit of 9mm ply, just so it encloses the back of the cupboards. Exactly the same as we did with the cupboards throughout the rest of the van. They've all got the ply lining right the way through, and it gives you a really good point to actually secure the cupboards to. Before we apply the cladding to this ply lining, I'm going to paint it with this white PVA glue. What that'll do is that'll seal the surface, but that'll also give it a really good key for the adhesive that we're going to use for the PVC cladding. So there we go, I hope that's answered your questions. So just to recap, we insulate, cover everything with Reflectix as the vapour barrier, then we put the 9mm ply lining on top of that, secure through the 9mm ply lining, through Reflectix into the steel members of the van with some self-drilling screws. Don't worry about puncturing the vapour barrier, the screw will actually plug its own hole and it will pull the ply lining in nice and tight. There's absolutely no way that any moisture is going to get through that screw hole. There isn't a hole there actually, the screw is actually plugging the hole, so no need to worry about that. And then what I do is I carefully sort out where I'm going to put the ply lining, because I use it to my advantage to trap furniture board, to secure walls, and then we can use the ply lining to secure the cupboards and the kitchen units. If you've got any other questions on any aspect of this build, please do leave me a comment below and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers.